Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tank12, having to call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks. A lot of things are going on right now. I'm very busy, so unfortunately I'll not have the same upload schedule as we had the last couple of weeks. But either way, hopefully you guys still enjoy the videos that I make. There are just not going to be as many of them. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Leopard 1. This is one of the best tier 10 medium tanks in the game. And I don't care if you disagree with me, because that's just for me. That's for me. This is my favorite. It's probably my favorite tier 10 medium tank at the moment. It always used to be the M48 Patton, but I haven't played this tank in a while because mobility is a bit lacking on the big old Patton. But with the Leopard 1, you have such a nice package, such a cool tank that is really a joy to be played. So we're going to go through everything, hopefully not make it too long. Let's start with the firepower. You have a 105mm gun, which boasts 420 alpha damage, same as with the Leopard Prototype A, so nothing new there. You get APCR shells for standard and premium, and you can see that the premium shells have 23mm of penetration, and a whopping shell velocity of 1,613 meters per second. Now, I do have the premium shell at first place, but I usually use the standard shells because of the ranked game mode. That was my setup. And in ranked, I was almost only firing premium shells because you basically needed to. Then, the standard shells, they have 1,480 meters per second shell velocity, so still very fast, and 278mm of penetration. That's incredible. That's a very good number. You know, this gun is going to do work for you. This gun is not going to let you down. Now, if you're also a connoisseur of high explosive shells, like me, you're going to really appreciate the DM11 high explosive shell that you have on this L7A1 gun. 105mm of penetration, 1,173 meters per second shell velocity. Really, really good shell velocity. And just that pen, look at that damage. You can roll all the way up to 638 damage with a single shot. But the average damage should be around 530 damage with a single hit. These high explosive shells are extremely potent and very useful against a lot of the light tanks or lightly armored vehicles at tier 10. There are a lot of light tanks, tank destroyers that you can pen with that, and even heavy and medium tanks from the side or the rear. So I would recommend you to load up on these bad boys and get them on your tank because they are really worth it. Now, rate of fire on this tank also quite good, but I'm boosting it with the crew, I'm boosting it with equipment, I'm boosting it with chocolate. Also with field modifications, because this tank has great DPM, 3,458. If you have all of it boosted, the gun traverse speed is fairly good with 46.34 degrees per second. 9 degrees of gun depression is lovely. It's not 10, but it's almost 10. 20 degrees of gun elevation is also very, very nice to have. Aim time is amazing. Gun dispersion is amazing. This tank is very accurate. This tank is very fast with aiming in. And the gun is really the main star, the main attraction why you should be playing the Leopard 1. But the gun is not the only thing that's great about this tank. Well, let's not talk about the survivability factor. This tank has no armor, and by this logic, it basically is not going to be able to bounce a lot of shells. So 1,850 hit points. Look after your hit points. These hit points will be your basically your check to live. They will look after you. Armor wise, you don't even have to talk about it. 70mm at the front of the hull, 52 on the turret. Anything is going to cut right through. But mobility-wise, this tank is incredibly fast. 70 kilometers per hour top speed without turbocharger, 75 with turbocharger, and specific power-to-weight ratio, as you can see right here, is at 24.41. That is really, really good. So this tank is going to accelerate quickly. It has top speed. It has great traverse speed of over 61 degrees per second, and it weighs very little. So yeah, you have to look into it. Do not get rammed with this tank. It's very light in comparison to some tier 10 super heavies, but it's really fast. The mobility is one of the stars of the show with this tank. Concealment wise, this tank, its base concealment is, I think, at like 20% or a little bit higher. I am using a crew that is completely filled up to the brim with all the skills that I need. So I skilled Concealment, I have low noise exhaust system class 1, and I also am running a directive for it, and I'm using Chocolate. So it will really boost this, and it'll allow you to stay hidden when in other situations you would not be able to do so. 42% camouflage rating right there when stationary, 36 when moving. So that's one of the skills I would really train on this tank. Same goes for spotting. This tank has a base view range of 410 meters. The M48 patent has 420 meters. 410 meters is really good, and you don't need to get like optics on this thing. You don't need coated optics because you already have like such a good base view range. If you have coated optics and you want to go for coated optics instead of low noise exhaust system, you can obviously do that, but I think that having more concealment is probably better because in the end, the view range, I mean, 462 meters, that's already very good. And I think I can work with that. Obviously, you want to improve the skills for the gunner and the commander. The commander needs to have improve the. Oh, he's also a radio operator. So you want to go for situational awareness and you want to go for recon to be able to spot better. Now, obviously, there's the other way you can do that. You can, switch it up and go more into scouting, but I just think that 462 meters is more than enough. Let's take a look at the field modifications, then the equipment, and then we're already going to jump into the gameplay. So the tank itself, I first went with light alloy mounting points, which gives me an additional 4% to hull traverse and gun traverse. Obviously, if your tank kind of gets damaged, you're going to have a penalty of a plus 50% ammo rack. But usually I'll just repair my tank. I'm not thinking about getting hit, so I just go for light alloy mounting points because I do not want to get hit. I do not want to get spotted. So basically I'll rather go for that than module durability increase. Then suspension arm. Now here, I'll have to think about it. What is this? It reduces dispersion during movement and during hull traverse. Now, because this tank is already so accurate, you don't really need to go for improved sight, so I went for a suspension arm because you're going to have better dispersion values. And generally speaking, I've been quite happy with that, but you can also go for improved accuracy, which wouldn't, benefit you that much, but still nice to have. Then I went for anti-reflective headlight coating, and that gives me better concealment because I want to have the concealment option when I'm trying to stay hidden. And I went for the scouting slot instead of the survivability slot because for me, myself, it's more important to be able to see the enemy or stay hidden longer than to get like 150 HP more. But, if you want to get 150 HP more, I'm not even sure how much you would be getting, like 10% probably. You can also go for survivability in close quarter fighting if you really want to go fight in close quarters with a Leo, but I would not recommend it. Then moving on, loading mechanism tuning, which gives me a better reload time and a plus 5% on the aiming circle, but dispersion is already so good, it doesn't really bother me. And then finally, the PTO tuning. This one gives me better engine power, and that really shows you, it gives you like a plus 1.01 horsepower per ton. So yeah, it's a nice little buff. This tank is now an absolute Chad. It's very fast, it has an incredible gun, it can stay hidden as long as it wants, and it can spot for itself. So basically you're the ultimate solo sniping warrior that can do anything you set your mind to, especially if you have the premium shells and the high explosive shells, you can do so much damage. Your mobility allows you to go anywhere, your gun allows you to basically pen anything, and yeah, those things combined make this a very good tank. So let me take a look at the equipment. I went with the turbocharger for the first slot to get that additional specific power to weight ratio because I want to be as fast as possible. But you could obviously also go for other things. Additional grousers, for example, plus 15% on maintaining speed when moving across any terrain type. That's also quite nice. You could also go, well, I don't think you need improved rotation and mechanism. because basically the entire tank is already turning very quickly, also with the turret. You could go for ventilations, but it's not going to give you that much of a boost, so I'd rather go with turbocharger. Or if you want to go with other things like Commander's Vision System, if you really want to go into a scouting kind of medium tank, that is also an option that you could go with. Then I went with low noise exhaust, because low noise exhaust gives me better concealment, but you can go for coated optics, you can go for Commander's Vision System, that also works if you do not care too much about your concealment. But I would just suggest that, keep an eye on the concealment levels, because it's going to show how effective you're going to be inside of a little bush. Then finally I went with the gun rammer to give me a little bit of an additional boost to do more damage. And I'm very happy with this loadout. This loadout screams like open wide maps, and it's the only loadout that I really care about whenever I play this tank. But if you want to have like a tank loadout for close quarter fighting, you could probably go for gun rammer, you could go for improved ventilation, and you could also get like additional HP, like with improved hardening. But I don't really see the point in that, because you do not really want to fight in close quarter situations when you're playing this tank. And if you have to fight in like close quarter maps, you just always want to stick with other tanks that have more armor than you, that you can kind of peek out behind them and do your damage that way. So I hope I've kept it short enough. We're moving on to the gameplay, and then we're going to have a verdict, and we're going to wrap up this Leopard 1 line review. We've reviewed all of the tanks starting from tier 6, and we're going to go through the next line soon. So I'm going to switch that up, and hopefully we can review more tanks in the future. So let's move on to the gameplay. Okay, so I have 2 gameplays lined up for you, and both of them are quite nice. And in both of the gameplays, I'm actually top tier, so keep that in mind. But this time around, it's top tier, tier 9 only, and tier 10. You'll find yourself in these games quite a few times. I shoot the Charge tier 4 just for fun with a high explosive shell, because I really like the high explosive shells on this tank. So, generally speaking, for this review, I think you already know the gist of it, that I'm a very big fan of this tank, and I just want to show you my replays. We get spotted by the EBR 105, very unfortunate. He is going to be faster than us, that is very clear. That is very clear from the get-go, but this tank is really fast. It has great engine power, and it has a top speed of 75 kilometers per hour, getting you to the places you need to be. Now, this gameplay is going to be a bit different. This is not the gameplay where we are excelling at everything we do, but this is the gameplay where I show you guys just how many things can go wrong when you play the Leopard 1. Because you'll see very quickly and very early on that we are getting ourselves into situations that we cannot really get ourselves out of. We spotted a T-30 down there, and we reloaded APCR, the SAM premium shells. I don't know why, but yeah. The shell types, the reason why I've set it up like this is because of ranked games, because I played this tank quite a lot in ranked games, and I had the shells switched out, so the premium shells are on the first one, the non-premium are on the second one. So right here, I'm just trying to see if I can spot the T-30 again, take him out of the game. Very dangerous tier 9 tank destroyer, but we don't do that. You could see that there was an enemy Leopard 1 and a prototype down there that were both spotting us, and one of them was shooting us as well. And we are in a position where we are quite far, at the front with our Leopard 1. Keep in mind, we don't have any armor, but we do have the view range. And I'm expecting to be able to see these guys before they shoot me, but unfortunately, as you can see, because the Leo 1, he's in a much better position than I am, manages to drive out, spots me, I see him, but I have to drive over the ridgeline to fire at him, and he puts one into me. So very quickly, we're down to 1000 HP. So you have to be very, very careful with what you do. I played this game too aggressively, and I just got myself into positions where I wasn't really able to keep myself hidden from the enemy team, and at the same time I was just trying to, you know, farm a little bit of damage from the tanks that were sitting down there. And I didn't want to go into this bush right here because it's also very exposed. And now I do realize that I made a mistake. We have lost just another tank, another Leo 1, somewhere right next to us. And now it means for us, we have to get out of this situation. We need to get out of here. We have a Udis and we have a T-30 up here. And I'm thinking about either going, you know, into a defensive position up here, or maybe even going further back. Because I don't want to get caught out here. If they start pushing me, I'm going to be dead. And so far you can see our team is doing very big bits in the city. They're taking over the entire part of the city in the north. We have an EBR 105 at A1. He completely neglected the south, which I would have expected him to be at, and we just lost the T-30. So this is for me my cue to run. And because you have this great mobility of 75 kph, you're going to be able to get away a lot of the times. You just need to really know where you want to go, because you still have to decide where you want to run to. I'm running into this area right here. I'm hoping that I can actually put some pressure on the Yak Tiger and knock him out so that we can clean up this part of the map easier and faster. I make a very big misplay. I drive right out in front of the Yak Tiger, getting blasted for 497 HP. And at this point I know I cannot play like this anymore. I cannot be as ruthless and as careless as I have been in the very early 5 minutes of this game, and I have to be a bit more reserved and careful with the way I play, because every single shot that's gonna hit with, or that's gonna connect with me in the next couple of minutes is going to kill me. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm just trying to see if I can spot anything going right past me, and we find the EBR 105. I don't really feel bad at firing APCR, premium APCR at the EBR 105, because I hate that fucking thing. And we get very lucky that he doesn't just, you know, flick us. The Conqueror, who moved over to our position, decided to push the Object 705A, but he already moved away, and now it's for us to defend the base. You can see that the enemy Sharpshooters, they're in a platoon, and they feel very, very confident. I get very lucky once again that he doesn't manage to hit me, and this Sharpshooter is it's a bit of a special push. He didn't expect me to be able to get that shot off in between the buildings, but because we have this amazing shell velocity, we're going to be able to just, you know, go right through there. And I do make a little bit of a mistake here as well. We didn't know if the Sharpshooter 4 was reloading or not, so we just presumed. And that could have been a very dangerous thing to do, moving out like that in front of the Sharpshooter. And I would certainly suggest to you that you shouldn't do that. But you can see, as soon as we manage to run away, there's still a good game to be had with 3,113 damage. No real assistance damage, but that's fine, because we can do our own damage. And the game actually turns out to be very close. We have, at the moment, 6 tanks versus 2 tanks now. But there are Yak Panzer E100 and there are Leopard 1. And both of these tanks, they are fairly high on HP, and we just lose the Concept 1B. I'm very low on HP. We have 712 HP less than they have. And I'm trying to hit this Yak Panzer E100. He has a little bit of an angle, so the lower plate hit doesn't manage to go right through. We do not get shot by the Leopard 1 because of this little wall that's in front of us. And now we have a very awkward situation where we have to fight these 2 tanks with 2 tier 9 tanks that are very low in HP, 1 tier 10 tank that is very low in HP, and 2 artillery pieces that probably cannot get their shots off at these targets. So now my brain is going into overdrive, because now I finally start to think what I should do, instead of just playing like a stupid little moron up here and getting shot all the time. I decide to move up to the south, use all of the map space that I have available to me, and try to spot the Yak Panzer E100 and Leo 1 from a safe position. I told the Conqueror, I told the T-54 E1 that I was going to make a play, and I told them not to die, because if we want to win, they need to stay alive, and I really wanna be able to spot the Jagdpanzer 100. So that means I need to have a little bit of a bush. Now keep in mind, my view range on this tank is 462 meters. You have 410 meters base view range. That's very, very nice. And my concealment rating is somewhere along the lines of about 790 points, which is 42% stationary and about 35% when on the move. So we do spot the Jagdpanzer 100, but he has positioned himself in a very nice little place where we cannot do anything to him. Unless we shoot, artillery is not going to be able to splash him unless they reposition. And you can see the T-54E1 and the Conqueror, they do move up a little bit to put a little bit of pressure, or get closer to them just in case that they're able to shoot them. And we spot the Jagdpanzer E100 once again, because obviously we have the view range advantage, and it looks like that this Jagdpanzer E100 doesn't have any additional view range. So I move up here, 464 meters. We don't know where the Leo is. I do have APCR shells, premium APCR shells loaded, and I think it's totally legitimate to use them in this situation, because you need all the pen you can have. 323 millimeters of penetration. You're going to be able to go right through the upper hull of the Jagdpanzer 100, the frontal part, and we do that, but we get a very bad low roll, 383 damage. And the Leo 1 gets spotted by our artillery. I didn't expect our artillery to move in, but RT does, and we managed to knock out the Jagdpanzer 100. So now it's a 1v4. And if we play our cards right, we shouldn't be losing this one. Even if one of the tank dies. The Conqueror moves in, he gets blasted by the Leo 1, but he gets a very lucky, quick shot off at the Leo 1 when he was driving forwards, and now the T-54E1 can basically eat him up. So in the end, not a very good game in terms of how we played it. I think we really misplayed quite a few times in this one, but in the end it was still a good result. Winning the game, getting 4 kills, and getting 3,664 damage, which isn't enough for the 95%, so I still have to work on that. But it's a start. Yeah, this tank, really fun, but it doesn't eat shells. Well, it eats shells great, and it loses HP very quickly. So that's what I wanted to show off in this gameplay. Always keep an eye on your HP, keep an eye where you are, and if you have to fall back, fall back. You have to have a little bit of distance towards your enemies, because you're not going to be doing well in close quarter fight. And if you need those HP to really have an impact at the later stages of the game where you have to push something, you need the HP, so you have to save it until the end. So we're going to move on to another game where I think I did a lot better, but it's also against tier 8s, 9s, and a couple of tier 10s, which is the ideal setup. But how you can do very well in the tier against even tier 10s, there's a video that I made separately from that, a gameplay where I only fired high explosive, or almost only fired high explosive. You can do very well with this tank at tier 8, tier 9, tier 10. Obviously at tier 8 it's going to be a lot more forgiving, and you can outspot your enemies a lot more. But at tier 10, this tank is still great. So moving on to the other game. As promised, tier 8 match, I know, don't hate me for it, with a couple of tier 9s and some tier 10s. But the game itself is quite nice. And especially since you don't have any armor, I think we can all, agree that we have no armor. That means that it's fine, that most of these tanks can actually do damage to us. Very weird right there. We actually bounced the AMX 1390, but it even looked like I didn't even hit, so didn't make any sense. We're playing on Lakeville. Lakeville is one of those maps that just, most people dislike, especially if you're in a lightly armored tank, because you either go to the city or you sit back at your base hoping that something shows up in the middle. And if you are very risky, if you like the risk, if you like the thrill, you go into the middle just like the AMX 13105 does, and you get obliterated in the first 3 minutes of the game. That's just the unfortunate, it's just the unfortunate way that Lakeville goes a lot of the times. Now, I know that I'm playing a Leo 1, so I'm not going to be a lot, very aggressive. I'm going to be sticking to my ways. I'm going to see what I can do. First play the game a bit slowly, see what kind of develops, where do the enemies push. We only have 2 tanks in the 1 and 2 line, the Brigado 54 and the Carnarvon Action 10. Now, there's one place where you can actually hide at A1 and A2. There are a couple of bushes you can hide behind where you can support your team. But I'm not really interested in the 1-2 line because I think that the 1-2 line is a bit of a stretch for the Leo 1 still, even if you're hidden. I don't like it. You do not have the room to maneuver, and I like to be a bit more free with this tank. So I decide to head into the city and see what I can do right there, because we have an EBR 90 right outside at E7. I know that the EBRs have really good camouflage, but he's just sitting out here. Nobody's spotting him. I'm just seeing if I can spot something here and maybe even shoot something. And we see a Caliban sitting up there. The shot goes wherever into the turret, but maybe could have even penned. Unfortunately, we bounce off of him. And we, in this moment, see, oh no, our team is going to lose the 1-2 line. We just lost the Carnarvon, we lost the Brigado 54, and now we have the WZ-120, 1FT on the retreat. We just lost an Indian Panzer in the middle. Everything is looking pretty grim. The enemy team has completely abandoned the city, and our team is now pushing the city, and we are losing the base at the same time. So what I'm trying to do now in this moment is I want to fall back. I want to use this bush, double bush it, and put some pressure on these guys. We hit the TVP T50-51 while he's running through. We didn't have to pre-aim anywhere, because you don't have to lead the shot with 1,480 meters per second shell velocity. You just fire. You click on the tank, the shell travels very quickly, and usually, most of the time, you don't really need to lead your shell. Now, we do have a little bit of progress. Our guerrilla just knocked out an Object 274A, and we have the VK101P, and we're actually pushing the enemy base, while they're actually pushing our base. So we just lost Lansen. Now, for me, it's all about, fighting back these guys that are sitting on cap. I'm pretty sure that they're not going to be able to fast cap, especially when I'm sitting here, because I can just penetrate all of these tanks. I just need to know where to shoot. So I'm lining up next shot on the E4. I'm thinking about going for the weak spot on the top of the turret, but then I decide to go for the lower plate because it's a better shot. And now we work on the T28. And as you can see, rate of fire, penetration, shell velocity, damage, everything is beautiful on this tank. We just penned this T28 for fun. Next target up is the E4, and we're just going to sit and fire at this E4. He just sits out there, takes these hits like he doesn't even care. Emil 2 appears out of nowhere, and this E4, he's going to die. Yeah, he gets knocked out by the shot from 2-4, and now we have gained or regained control of parts of our base. We still have an Emil 2, we still have a Brigado and an EBR 90 sitting at the back, but we can deal with that. So now, 3,000 damage dealt. I'm thinking about, well, should I go help and maybe even push the Emil 2? If I push this guy, he has 3 shots in his autoloader. That would do possibly maybe 1,200 damage. I'm at full HP. That's very important at this point. But I decide to, you know what? This is not worth it. This Emil 2 is in a very good spot. I do not want to push him now, because in that area, he's only going to be dangerous if he wants to move up further. So what I see now is that my entire team has returned back to the base, and we have left open the middle, and we have left open the entire city map. So what I want to do right now is I want to see if I can probe the city a little bit and see if these guys are still sitting back at the base or if they are going to start pushing. Because of the great mobility we have on this tank. Now, I can't stress this enough. Because of the great mobility, we're able to move into the city very quickly, get into a position where we can set up shop real fast. I'm not going to run into the enemy, into the enemy lines immediately. I'm just going to set up real fast, see if something is coming my way first. Because we still have more than enough time, and we spot the EBR 90. We put a 488 damage shot into him, and now we know, okay, they're thinking about maybe making a move. There's an AMX 1390 in the middle of the map, we just knocked out the Udas 0-3, and our guy, the EBR-90, just managed to, spot these guys, which is very nice, but unfortunately we lose him. But still, we managed to hit the AMX once, and we bounced off of him once, unfortunately. But at this point, I know that we have enough tanks at the back of the map. It's time for me to use my view range. It's time for me to use my gun, my mobility, my stealth, to put some pressure on the guys that are sitting at the base. I'm very confident in my abilities to know when to go and when to fall back, and if I get overwhelmed, I will retreat. And I think somebody in my team even tells me to not do it because they are afraid that I might just overextend. But what I'm going to be doing is, I have 462 meters of view range, and I'm going just to be using a couple of bushes to see what is going on. AMX 1390 moves over to my position. I'm not sure if it was planned. I think it was a little bit careless with 94 HP. I would have just set up shop somewhere in the bush. You'd have better camo than me, probably better view range as well. But right here, we have a very good position where we can actually see everything that's at the back of the enemy base. And I'm hoping that the EBR-90 is not going to zoom right past me right now. The Gorilla 15 actually sees that we have an opening, and he makes a move, which is, very, very nice to see. The Caliban is in the middle. This time around, he doesn't bounce our shot. The Gorilla 15 knocks a big part of his HP out of that guy, and now I get splashed by artillery. Like, I was really confused. Like, he perfectly hit that shot on me on a blind shot. Like, he did 430 damage with a direct splash next to me. It wasn't even a direct hit. So yeah, another warning, artillery is going to be the bane of your existence. I'm sorry, but when artillery does spot you, it's not going to go very well. So, this time around you can see Shaffutur 4 is alone against the Emil 2 and the Poketo. And if they would have pushed him, they would have been able to win this game and capture it out. But as you can see, we knock out the EBR, we knock out the little TVP, and we take another hit by the GW Tiger this time around. We don't have any health packs, and we're not going to be able to exact our revenge on the GW Tiger. So I tell my team, make him suffer, and unfortunately I hit a comma. So now, yeah, basically we've won the game. We could just cap here, but I think that's boring. So I'm thinking about it. Secure the win. You have 6 kills, a top gun, almost 5,000 damage. But I'm like, no, you gotta end this game in style. So I move on over. The T100 LT had a very good game. The Gorilla as well. The Shaffutur as well. This was a very good team defense. And now I'm just trying to push this Waffenträger. Not Waffenträger, but this Gorilla 15 up here, just because I have the time. I'm not going to be able to get anything on the Pogator 46, so I don't really care. I'm just going to have some fun at the end of the game. And we had a very, very nice game. So yeah, the Leopard 1, what a tank. So, would I recommend the Leopard 1? Yes, absolutely yes. Do I recommend the line? I recommend the line if you like fast, medium tanks with really good guns and that have some decent view range. If you like the tier 9, you'll love the tier 10. If you dislike the tier 9, you're not going to fall in love with the Leopard 1 because these tanks are very similar. The only thing is that the Leopard 1 actually feels a lot faster. It just feels way quicker in everything it does. It's snappier, it has better gun handling, its DPM is better, it has better mobility, and I think that with the Leopard Prototype A, because it's a prototype, it feels a bit more sluggish, while the Leopard 1 just doesn't have that sluggish feel to it. It's just this very big powerhouse of an amazing gun strapped to a really good platform that will, give you great, basically great games if you are willing to learn. The Leopard 1's learning curve is quite high, it's quite steep, because you'll have to work with concealment, you'll have to work with vision, you'll have to know when to fall back, you have to know when to push, and you have no armor. So that even at a tier 8 game, every single tank can be dangerous to you, because they can just cut right through. And if you get spotted somewhere, and you're out in the open, and there's maybe an E50M right next to you, you're going to be 150% sure. You can be 150% sure that you're going to be the one that's dying first, because everyone will be firing at the tank that has no armor. But if you can look past all of that, you can look past that, the lack of armor. Like, who needs armor when you have this mobility, when you have this crazy gun, when you have very good high explosive shells, when you have good view range, when you have 9 degrees of gun depression, when you have the mobility at your disposal, the concealment that you can push. I think, and the field ops, the field modifications will make this tank even better. So generally speaking, this is a really good tank, a tank that I think would every single medium tank player and light tank player will benefit from this tank. They will love this tank, and I think the ones that do not like it are just the ones that do not like to have no armor and maybe have played this tank wrong. But obviously, that's just my opinion. You can always form your own opinion. Watch some other content creators, see if they have reviews on the Leopard 1. But I really enjoy this tank, and it's one of my favorites at the moment, which used to be the M48 because it has armor, but the mobility, in my opinion, is now way more important than the armor that I had on the M48. It's very nice to be able to stick your head out and peek over a ridgeline and do some damage, but the M48's armor is still, completely gets destroyed by premium shells in the end, so it doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, that is my final verdict. Really go for the Leopard 1 if you have the ability. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, have a good one.